Stop telling people that you're good and show them that you're good. In this video, I'm thinking there'll be two parts to this video. In this first part, I'm going to talk you through an example of where, as a BMS consultant, and I'm interviewing BMS companies, they're participating in a tender for a BMS project, and the BMS company is in the meeting and they are presenting their offer, their team, their solution. They're being interviewed for a project. I do this all the time. So in today's video, I'm going to talk you through an example there of, this first part where it's a BMS company being interviewed for a project, and you might be the salesperson listening to this. I might do a second part of this video where it's an example of where you're a BMS engineer or a manager and you're being interviewed for a job or a promotion at work. So both these situations, whether you're a company and you're being interviewed for a project in this video, or a second part, if I create a second part, where you're an individual, you're a BMS engineer or manager, and you're being interviewed for a job or a promotion, the same principle applies. So as a BMS consultant, I work on a lot of BMS upgrade projects, like lots of BMS upgrade projects. And a result of that, I am interviewing a lot of BMS companies all the time. Like since 2014, interviewing BMS companies as part of tender for BMS projects. So I'm issuing a specification, the BMS company reads through that, they submit a fee to do the project, and then I interview all the tenderers, often with the client or the project manager or the facility manager, sometimes just me. I'm interviewing these companies. And I am kind of bored with BMS salespeople coming to these interviews and telling us how awesome they are. Like, we're the best BMS company, we've got the best people, we're really good at this, it's our bread and butter, we're so good at this. I'm bored with companies telling us we're good, because I've never been in a situation where the salesperson in a formal tender interview says, Bryce, I'm going to be honest with you, we're kind of average. We do some good jobs, we do some bad jobs. At the moment, we've got low resource numbers and we're actually struggling to deliver our work, and we're failing to deliver a good quality outcome. I have never heard a BMS salesperson say that in a tender interview, right? And in a lot of cases, that would be the truth, actually. So I'm just tired of sitting there and hearing the exact same story. We're so good, the next tenderer, we're so good, the next tenderer, we're so good. Everyone says that. So in this video, I'm going to give you an example where rather than telling everybody you're good, you show them that you're good. You show them that. And I'm actually going to give you an example. I'll share my screen and I'll show you what I do when I'm being interviewed for a tender. So sometimes I am tendering for a project and all the consultants are tendering. And then, whoever wins, whoever is awarded the project, they will put together a specification, run the tender, and do the consulting services. Usually I'm not actually in a tender. Usually I'm just, a company comes to me, they ask me for a fee, I give them the fee, I get the job. But sometimes, say 1 in 10 jobs, I am actually in a tender against other consultants. So I'm going to share my screen and step you through how, when I'm being interviewed personally myself, how I go to the interview and I show the customer that I'm good. I don't just tell them I'm good. I don't go there and say, I'm Bryce Anderson, I'm a BMS consultant, I've been doing this for so many years, I'm really good, I'm the best at doing this. I don't just tell them I'm good, I show them that I'm good. So I'll give you an idea of how I do this, with the idea that you as a BMS salesperson would take this example and try and do it for yourself. So you would go to a tender interview, and rather than telling the consultant or the building owner or the facility manager or the project manager, rather than telling them we're so good, you show them that you're good. I'll give you an example of how I do that. If I do a second video, I've got a really good idea of how a BMS engineer manager could go to an interview and show that they're good rather than tell them they're good. If you actually followed my advice in the second video, I'm telling you now, you will 10 times increase your chances of winning that job, getting that job, because we are very bad at, how we present ourselves in tender interviews, both as individuals and also as companies. All right, so enough of that. I'll share my screen and then I'll step through this. It's going to be a bit tricky because I don't actually want to show you my full process because my competitors might be watching this video and I don't want my competitors to know what my process is, because if they know my process, my differentiation will be less. All right, let's do it. So basically what I do is in this tender interview, when the building owner or the project manager is interviewing me for BMS consulting services, I just step through, I show them my process. I show them what I do rather than just telling them what I do. So I don't just tell them that I have a process and I do this. I show them my process. So in this situation here, I've got this spreadsheet that I have, and I use the spreadsheet to control the quality of the work that I do as a BMS consultant. Because a very long time ago, there was a situation where I forgot to do something. I think the actual exact example was on BMS upgrade projects, I usually specify that we should provide new supply air temperature sensors on all the hot water reheats or the electric reheats of the VAV boxes and the supply air of the fan on it. So if we just spend $1 million doing a BMS upgrade and we're replacing these controllers, while we're there, just throw in a 2-meter cable and put a little cheap 2-wire passive sensor, supply air temperature sensor. Then we can do lots with that. And there was a job that I forgot to specify it. How did I forget that? So then I started creating this process, and it originally started with this the specifications checks tab, which I'm not going to click on. This specification checks, this tab here, when I'm doing the specification down here, it has all the things that I have to check for on a project to make sure I don't forget something. So like, where is the BMS server installed? Is it a rack mount server? Is it a tower server? Do I need a UPS for it? Do I need to move the server to somewhere else? All those questions are all the way in there. There's a whole page of questions. So when I do the specification, as long as I work through that, I don't forget something. So in this tender interview with the customer, I show them this tab. So this, I'm showing you the first one here. So the first one here is my project kickoff. So as soon as the customer says to you, yeah, we want you to do the project, I open this tab and I run through these things. So update my financial forecast. I block out the time on my calendar, 20 hours or whatever to do that task. Secure a freelancer. Make sure I have the correct purchase order and invoice details. Set up the kickoff meeting. So for this project, it was set up for this date. And then what I then do is pretend now I'm actually talking to the customer. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the customer. And I say to them, so, customer, what I have found through doing these projects is that you and I waste a lot of time arranging all these meetings over a 2-year process. And it takes time for us to do that. So what I do is I arrange all the meetings up front. So whether it's kickoff meeting now, and I'm going to send you calendar invites for the next 2 years for all the different phases we're going to do. So for example, in 3 months time, we do the tender walk around on site. Right now, I'm going to send you I'm going to send you a calendar invite for that tender walk around at like 9 a.m. for 2 hours on that day. We're doing the tender walk around. And then as we move through the project and, we do the tender phase and we do the tender walk around, I just change those details and I add in all the contractors into that calendar invite. If we're going to have a meeting a week later to discuss the tender, I'm going to give it to you now in the calendar invite. So once we start, we never have to like arrange meetings again. It's like less work for you. It's less coordination time for me. The other reason why I personally do this side discussion is that I like to control when the meetings happen. I like to have like these sort of meetings in the afternoon. So the first half of the day, I like to focus on like deep work. You should read this book. This is a very good book, this. So the first half of the day, I focus on deep work. And then after lunch, I have all these meetings like every day, like progress meetings. I don't want to allow the customer to have an opportunity to send me a calendar invite for a time that doesn't suit me. I don't want them to do that. I want to control the meeting. So right now, I have no meetings on Fridays and I have no meetings on Mondays. All my meetings are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after lunch because I control that. I don't want them sending me a meeting when I want to do my deep work. I don't want that. So I don't tell them that part. I just tell them the part where I don't want us to waste time coordinating meetings every 2 weeks for 2 years. So I showed them this process, and this second tab here, FM questions, I show that to them in the tender interview where I show them, these are the questions I'm going to ask you when the project starts. These are the questions I'm going to ask the contractor when the project starts. When I do our site survey, I do these things. Specification. This tab here, the tender walk around, if I click on that, it has my process for exactly what I do on a tender walk around. Before leaving the hotel, make sure the tender documents will open your laptop and read the specification to remind yourself of the scope. It's like a pretty lame note that, but when I work remote, I use a different laptop. So I want to make sure that it's all synchronized to the cloud and I can open the documents. So my process when I'm in Melbourne or Sydney and I'm busy, like I'm remote, this reminds me, before you do that, get to site 30 minutes earlier before the tender walk around, meet the client, set up the laptop in the meeting room, get keys and swap if I'm needing the walk around, because I hate it when I get to a tender walk around and I go into a meeting and I've got to connect my laptop to a screen. And there's like 15 contractors in the room. I'm under pressure to get the HDMI working. I'm getting confused. I'm 51 years old. I get confused. So I remind myself to get there early, go to the room, I plug my laptop in, I get it all working, then I go meet the contractor and do the walk around. So every single step through this thing, I have these, the tender interview. These are all this is my process for the tender interview. What question do I ask them in the interview? While I'm here, another thing I do is, and this is me showing the client this, I have a Word doc that has all these emails and calendar invites pre-written out. So this is the email I send when I do, when I invite the contractor for the BMS upgrade. This is the email that I send them. So every single project I ever do, the emails that I send the contractors to invite them to the tender is the exact same email. Like, and it says here, please reply to this email to confirm your interest in tendering. That's because like a long time ago, one of my tenderers pulled out during the tender phase. I was a tenderer short and I didn't have the 3 that I needed for the procurement policy of the client. So I'm continually, every single project, I'm updating my process. Every single project, improving these processes. When I send the calendar invite for the tender walk around, for the contractors to come to site and walk around, if I scroll down now, my customers' names are in these other templates. I don't want to show it to you. And there's actual people's names. I've just copied and pasted them into my template from real emails and real calendar invites. That calendar invite that I send out to contractors, I say that next Wednesday, like in 2 weeks' time, the Wednesday is the tender walk around. That calendar invite is pre-written out. So I never forget the process to follow with them, what they have to do, blah, 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 blah. So I'm stepping through all the, I'm showing, I only spend about 1 minute on this page, but my customer can see that, sorry, my future customer in my tender, they can see exactly the process, how I control the quality of my projects. So I'm stepping through here and I'm showing them my process that the whole way through, like in the construction phase, this is what I do. In the tender interview, this is what I do, right? So this is like in my detailed process. If I had to hire somebody, which I don't want to, because at the top of my wall there says business minimalism. I want to be a minimalist business. I don't want no boss and I want no resources that I've got to find work to feed them. If I had to hire somebody, my process is documented, it's in deep documented. Somebody else can start my business and do exactly what I do, kind of. So I walk through, I show them this. So my customers looking and thinking, wow, Bryce has this process, like there's all the things filled in. It's not just like a process. I'm filling things in here. If I open up like the FM questions, like all of their answers that they gave me that I asked them is in there. If I open up the contract questions, all the answers, what is the Windows Server operating system version? What is the BMS application version? Is there an end of life date for the BMS? What are the part numbers for network controllers, field controllers, terminal unit controllers? How do you access the BMS remotely? VPN, all those questions, loads and loads of questions. I'm showing them that. They're thinking, wow. Hopefully they're thinking that. And I show them my emails. Now, the other thing I do is then I show them my specification. So I go into the specification and I just step through this gently about how I control my process. So in the specification is a section called project management. In this section, I'm telling the BMS contractor what they have to do for the BMS contracts project management. Let me read this out to you. So in the financial part, this is the BMS project manager. This is what I want you to do in the project, because, like, we're not training our BMS project managers on how to project manage jobs. Like, we're not training them. So it says, project manager person, provide an invoice schedule within 2 weeks award of the project that forecasts invoice amounts for the project's duration. I want you to sit down, develop your project program, which is this requirement above here, produce the project program. And then I'm saying, once you have the program, I want you to work out how much you're going to invoice me every single month. And I provide a template of that. So in my specification, sorry, in the tender pack. Okay, in a second. I'm not going to show you that. In my tender pack, I have, I'll just show you quickly. Hang on a second. This is a tender pack for an actual project, right? So most consultants will provide like the points list there. They'll provide the functional description, which is like the control strategy document, and a network drawing. So most consultants provide 3 things in a tender pack, and they often don't even provide those 3 things. I provide shitloads of things in my tender pack. I spend months and months and months. For example, this folder here, graphic screenshots. I'll spend like 2 days and screenshot 775 graphics. I wish I wasn't telling you this, right? I do not want my competitors to know I do this. Don't tell my competitors that I do this. So I screenshot all these graphics for the entire project, 775 graphics. I've screenshot them into tender pack. It's like 2 days of labor. So site photos, I'm sharing like 429 site photos for this project. Massive amounts of work. So I show the customer, this is the tender pack that I produce. You're buying this from me. My fee, you're buying this from me, and this is how I mitigate risk by doing all this sort of stuff. One of these things is BMS example templates. This is in my tender pack, and it's this document here. So in the specification, when I told them, just pause for a second, I'm showing you this because this is what I show my future customer when they're interviewing me for a tender. I'm showing them my process. I'm just reminding you, you should do the same. All right. So in the specification, it says produce this invoice schedule. But to help the BMS company, I produce a template for them. So in here, it shows the whole project, all the months, how much they're going to invoice me. So if they send an invoice to me in November as the consultant, I'm usually also the project manager on these jobs. I'm expecting an invoice of $167,000. This helps my customer forecast the money they need to pay the contractors so the contractors actually get paid and there's no dramas. I'm expecting this invoice. Then I say in the specification, when you send me the progress claim invoice, because my process, because a long time ago, a situation happened where the BMS contractor's invoice didn't get paid by the client. And it caused a big problem, of course, because these small companies, you can't not pay them the invoice. They need the money. So I created this process a very long time ago, and it says this: the invoice schedule and progress tracking schedule shall be issued each month to support the monthly claim invoice. Issue the invoice to me between these dates. Because what I do is I look at the invoice schedule that you sent me, at the start of the project, and you said in November you're going to invoice me 167. I look at your invoice, and if you're invoicing for the right amount, I'll approve it if you've done that work. Now, the progress tracking sheet is this sheet. So the project manager, under the scope of work of my specification, has to produce this document. This is the tracking sheet. So as the BMS company works through upgrading floors, they're marking up the sheet for design done, procurement done, engineering, installation, programming, database, graphics, points map, trends, alarms, time schedules, reports, point-to-point commissioning, phase 1 tuning. They update this as they're going. So at the end of the month, I take their invoice schedule, which says that for November, they're going to invoice me. I know we're going off topic here, but just bear with me. I don't know, it's hard to explain. You send me an invoice in November. Your invoice schedule says that it's going to be levels 27, 28, 29, some design, some project management. It comes to 167,000. So it's 27, 28, 29. I look at this sheet, level 27, 28, 29. And if there's 100, if you've done this work, I write a letter recommend the invoice is paid, and I give it to the person that pays the invoice. I just short circuit the whole client. I short circuit the project manager. I deal with this. So in my interview, I'm saying to my customer, the specification tells the contractor to produce the invoice schedule for these reasons, and they've got to produce a progress tracking sheet for these reasons, and I give them a template. To help them, I give them a template. I don't just have words in the spec. Like, I don't just have words, I have the template that backs that up, that helps them. It makes this process work. It reduces risk in the project. It makes my job successful, and why I keep getting repeat work. Now, in the spreadsheet, this template spreadsheet, when the specification says, like if I go there now, I could show you, it says, if you want to ask me a question, send an RFR. And I document in the specification the process for sending RFRs, and I give them a template. So if you want to ask me a formal question, send me a question, but track it in this thing so that every month when we have our monthly meeting, if I have to open right now my monthly meeting minutes template that I do every 2 weeks, there's a section there called Open RFRs, and I look at the sheet that you're populating. When I tell them to send technical submissions, when you send a technical submission to me for review, points list, control panel drawings, valve schedules, whatever it is, you must send me the submission as a PDF and also track it in a technical submission register. This helps the BMS contractor, the project manager, keep me honest. If I'm not keeping up, they can say, hey, Bryce, I sent you these technical submissions. These are open. You haven't closed them. Like, I will create a process that puts pressure on me that we're all working together and this job is going to be successful. And I'm telling the customers, I'm showing them my process. I have all the templates for the things that I talk about, in my thing. Like when you do meter validation, like I have the template that I want you to meter validation sheet in. So everything's backed up with templates. This is how I control the quality of projects with different types of BMS companies. So my customers know that when they engage me, every single project, no matter how big it is or how small it is, I follow the exact same process. I follow the exact same process every single time. I do the exact same checks. I do the exact same, everything's exactly the same. One last thing, I think it's one last thing. In the specification, there is obviously a graphics section in here. Just find that quickly, hang on. There's a graphics section in here, and like I have very detailed clauses around the graphics. Like this is the home page, the overview page, like the banner on the top, what's going to be everywhere, the dedicated main system, chillers, boilers, what I want on these graphics, floor plans. But BMS companies don't tend to read the specification, and also we're not training our BMS engineers on how to design graphics actually. Actually, I'll just pop back to this. In the specification, it talks about the design for graphics. Where is that tab? This is the graphics design. This is how you design the graphics. You produce a graphics design schedule. The specification talks about it. There's an example to help the contractor understand it. I check all these things. The spec talks about the graphics clauses, but I also started drawing out the graphics a little while ago. So I have a graphics clause that tells them the contractor what to do, and then I draw it out to reinforce it and to help them. So here's like my home page. Here's the overview page. So if you read the graphics clause in the specification, it lines up with these. This is in the specification. It's in part of my tender pack. If I go back to my tender pack, there it is there. Appendix A to BMX example graphic sketches. The previous spreadsheet was Appendix A, BMX example templates. Here's the floor plan that I want you to do for the landlord. And here's the floor plan that you do for the tenant, because the tenant needs to see different things. Tenants want different things in their graphics. They can't see certain things. This is the tenant's graphic. The tenant equipment, alarms handled differently, information handled differently. Here's the stuff for the chiller control system. There's a YouTube video about this exact page actually, because sometimes I'll create something for a YouTube video or a training course, and I just repurpose it as part of a specification. So these are the peak demand management system graphics, demand control ventilation graphics, optimal start graphics, blah, 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 right? So yeah, you get the vibe. Did I remember everything? I think I showed you everything I wanted to. The other consultants that are tendering against me, They're going in there and saying like, we're really good, we're super great. I'm going in there and I'm showing them my process, and my customers like, wow, that is amazing. So you as a BMS salesperson, if you're being like interviewed for a tender, stop going in there. I'm bored to death with every salesperson saying they're great. Like sometimes I know they're not great. Sometimes like I've done work and I'm like, bro, do you know you're not great? Maybe you don't know you're not great. Like go follow your engineer around on site. You'll see what's happening. So yeah, sorry, this wasn't supposed to be like a 25-minute video, like got out of hand like usual, but go to a tender interview, stop telling everyone you're good, and show them that you're good. I think that's it. Let me check my notes. Give me a second. All right, I'll just read this out. If you're interested in BMS stuff and you want to be a hero, look in the YouTube description box below for your next step. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.